The reading is from Proverbs chapter 3, verses 3 to 8. Let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favour and a good name in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. This is the word of the Lord.
In 1914, a man called H.G. Wells wrote a book which he entitled The War That Will End War. His belief was that once the First World War was over and the enemy had been defeated, that would be it. The end of it, all war, would then finish. However, as we know, just 21 years later, the Second World War began, leading to immense loss of life. I read earlier this week that today there are 8 major, they call them major conflicts going on in the world. By major, the definition is that over 10,000 people have to be killed every year to make it a major conflict. So there are 8 of those going on today, involving 41 different countries. Now, these figures I've mentioned illustrate why I personally do have rather mixed feelings when it comes to Remembrance Sunday. On the one hand, I feel a very deep sense of gratitude for those people who laid down their lives, paid the ultimate sacrifice in order to win our freedom. I think about my grandfather, who nearly lost his life in the trenches in the First World War. Indeed, if my grandfather hadn't been pulled out of a flooded trench by a fellow soldier, me and my family would never have existed, and I would not be here today. And then I think about my dad, who was in the Navy and who faced great danger and severe cold in the Arctic Ocean. And my dad used to describe how his hands got so cold that he had to begin warming them up by plunging them in a bucket full of iced water. So I find it very important that the sacrifices of people like this are not forgotten. However, on the other hand, it seems to me that the human race has learnt nothing. People continue to face violence and aggression. Armies still march out to face and inflict death. It's very clear, isn't it, that we do live in a deeply troubled world, and it challenges us as what is the best way to live in such a world as this. Now, when I knew that I'd be preaching on Remembrance Sunday, and that we'd be doing a series picking out passages from the book of Proverbs, my mind immediately turned to the passage that Kimberly's just read to us from Proverbs chapter 3. This was partly because 2 of the verses in that passage that I'll come to later were given to me when I was baptized at the age of 13, but also because it seemed to me that these verses have a lot to say to us about how we can properly remember Remembrance Sunday, both by giving thanks, but also reflecting on everything that still happens. So we're going to look at Proverbs 3, verses 3 to 8, under the heading of Living Wisely in a Troubled World. And the first point I want to make is that we need to walk in love and faithfulness with other people. Verses 3 and 4, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them round your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Then you will find favor and a good name in the sight of both God and men. Some years ago, I read these words in a national newspaper. I think it was a letter to the editor. It said this: the 10 Commandments require a mere 300 words. The American Declaration of Independence, 1,300 words. However, the EU regulations regarding the export of duck eggs requires 26,900 words. If that tells us anything, I guess it does tell us that we cannot judge the significance or the importance of something by the number of words that are used to describe it. And I'd like to suggest to you this morning that there are two words that express how we can live wisely in our relationship with other people in a troubled world. And those words are love and faithfulness. Now you may ask me, well, why do love and faithfulness sum up the proper attitude, the wise attitude to others? And the answer is because this very powerful combination is also at the very heart and nature and character of God. Let me just give you one example of this in Psalm 89, verses 1 and 2. I will sing of the Lord's great love forever. With my mouth I will make your faithfulness known. I will declare that your love stands firm forever, that you have established your faithfulness in heaven itself. Now, I guess we understand that love on its own can be sentimental and undiscerning. Faithfulness on its own can be harsh and unyielding. But when you combine these two things together, you have something that is immensely powerful and strong. And so the first principle of walking the wise path is to bind these two things, love and faithfulness, around your neck. Now, when I heard those words about binding it around your neck, my mind immediately went to a wooden yoke that is put around the necks of cattle, oxen, in order to enable them to steer a straight path. I think too of the words of Jesus in Matthew 11, verses 28 to 30. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. Love and faithfulness are a yoke to put around our necks, but also, says the writer, to be written on the tablet of your heart. In other words, this very powerful combination provides a sense of external guidance, a yoke leading me along the right way to go, but also internal motivation, the tablet that is on my heart. Now you may ask, well, how does this principle work out in practice, in my relationship with other people? Well, I think actually if you take it seriously, it can work really well. Let me just give you a few examples. How should I respond to the person who is critical and unkind towards me? What would love and faithfulness suggest? What should I do about this difficult decision I have to make at work? Well, what would love and faithfulness do? How should I respond in this moral dilemma that I'm facing? How do love and faithfulness work together in that? And when I think about persecuted people throughout the world and those who suffer as a result of war and violence, to act with love and faithfulness can begin, I think, to help us respond in the right way. So in terms of living and walking in wisdom with other people, the author gives this very powerful and very practical, I think, combination. It is a kind of rule of thumb. Focus on this powerful combination of love and faithfulness, a combination seen at the heart of God and one to act as a yoke to guide us and a tablet on the heart to motivate and inspire us. The second principle of walking in wisdom is to walk fully trusting in God. Verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make your path straight. Now, in our house group every Wednesday, one of the things that we always try and do is to pray for Christians in different parts of the world who are facing persecution for their faith. And sometimes I kind of sit and I think this is far too easy. It's a bit of a cop-out, really. What difference can it possibly make that a group of 8 or 9 people are sitting in a room somewhere praying for these people? And then we read, particularly in the Open Doors magazine, about persecuted believers who say how much they value and depend upon the prayers of Christians throughout the world and how grateful they are for these prayers and how they feel the impact of these prayers in their lives. Now, coming nearer home, last weekend I was preaching at my sister's church on the Wirral. And during the course of the time that we were there staying with her, she said that in the immediate aftermath of her husband's death a few years ago, she said she found it impossible to pray. She said she just couldn't summon up the energy to pray. However, she said, she could feel the prayers of other people. And she said how their prayers really helped her. And she was conscious of them, bringing her through that difficult time. Now, these verses were the ones that were given to me when I was baptized, over 60 years ago now. And they have lived with me ever since. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. These words tell us that we can trust God with everything. There's nothing too big, nothing too small, that we cannot with confidence place that thing into the hands of a loving God. And lean not on your own understanding. Now, we may not understand how praying for a Christian in Nigeria can possibly make any difference. But we're not leaning on what we understand. We are trusting God and believe that it can make a difference. In all your ways, acknowledge him. This tells us to trust is about recognizing that God is deeply and personally interested in everything that happens to us. Whether it happens personally in my own life, whether it happens in the world in which we live, whether I'm reading the newspaper in the morning in bed and I get deeply disturbed about what I read, God cares about it. And we acknowledge him as we involve him in every aspect of our lives and our concerns. As we live and walk in a troubled world, our calling is to walk faithfully, trusting God. It is to believe that God is concerned about Gaza and Ukraine, Sudan and Nigeria and other places where there is violence and suffering. Praying about these things, involving God in them, trusting him to be at work in those places is a key part of walking wisely in a troubled world. And this is our response to all the situations that confront us. Whether they are international problems like war, persecution, or human trafficking, whether they are local problems like sexual abuse, knife crime, or injustice, or whether they are personal problems that I face within my own home and family or my place of work, whatever, God cares about each one of those things, and he calls upon us to trust him and to involve him in it. Walk in love and faithfulness with others. Walk fully trusting in God. The third point I want to make is to walk humbly with yourself. In verses 7 to 8, do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Humility is one of those really important qualities that is impossible to define. Somebody once described humility as being like a bar of soap in the bath. As soon as you've got hold of it, it's gone. In Psalm 25, verse 9, we read these words, he guides the humble in what is right and teaches them his way. This clearly tells us in terms of discerning the wise and the right path, humility is extremely important. And in this passage, the author gives us two very helpful ways of thinking about humility. One of them we've already referred to in verse 5, lean not on your own understanding. Clearly, the idea is not that we don't think about things or that we falsely imagine that my insights and my understanding is completely useless and a waste of time. That's not humility. Humility is not to lean on your understanding. It is not to think that my view is the final view on the matter. Not to think that we have all the answers within ourselves and we understand everything that there is to understand. The second helpful insight into what humility means is found in verse 7. Do not be wise in your own eyes. True humility is the recognition that I don't have all the answers. I'm not the fount of all wisdom. In the light of this, if this one is willing to both listen to God, of course, but also to listen to other people. To seek advice, to realize that others have far more insight than I do. God does not lead the arrogant or the self-opinionated, but he does guide those who are humbly open to him and willing to always learn new things from him. Living wisely in a troubled world means that I do not put myself above other people. I do not look down in judgment upon others, but I seek to recognize my own areas of weakness and act towards situations in the world and around me with a sense of humility and understanding. When I was a small boy, I guess like lots of families, we used to go on family holidays to the seaside. And one of the things that I always enjoyed at the seaside was walking with my dad over very slippery rocks close to the sea. This had both a sense of adventure about it, in that it was very easy to slip off the rock and fall into the sea, but there was also a sense of assurance about it because I was with my dad. Now, my dad taught me that in order to stay safe on the slippery rocks, I needed to be able to look in 3 directions at once. I needed to be able to look outwards, first of all. I needed to spot potential dangers on the rocks around me. I needed to see the green and the slimy rocks ahead. But I also needed to look upwards. I needed to notice the rocks that were above me. I didn't bash my head on them. I needed to be able to look and to see where I was going, what the destination was. But thirdly, I also needed to be able to look inwards. I needed to know what my body was capable of. Was I able to jump across that gap? Could I balance on one leg on a wet rock? And so I needed a realistic assessment of my own capabilities. So in order to safely navigate my way through the rocks, I needed to be able to look outwards, upwards, and inwards. And as I learned to do these things, as they became quite natural to me, I became much more secure in walking over difficult ground. In Proverbs 3, verses 3 to 8, the writer gives advice to a young man who is setting out on the hazardous journey of life, with all the potential pitfalls and dangers that lie before him. And like my dad guiding me over the slippery rocks at the seaside, Solomon encourages his son to look in 3 directions at once, to look outwards in his dealings with other people, so that he could rely on the powerful combination of love and faithfulness, guiding him like a yoke around his neck and a tablet on his heart, to look upwards to God as he seeks to trust God wholeheartedly and involve God in all the decisions that he makes, and to look inwards as he recognizes his own capabilities, and instead of relying on his own understanding, his own personal wisdom, he is ready to listen to others and recognize that he doesn't have all the answers. On this Remembrance Sunday and in the whole of our lives, in the different decisions that we have to make, the journeys that we embark on, I pray that we too may walk in love and faithfulness with others, may walk fully trusting in God, and may walk humbly with ourselves, so that we may at every step follow the path of wisdom, God's way for our lives.